Students, in this chapter we'll discuss about human health and diseases, brief synopsis. First, the definition of health. The state of complete physically, mentally, and socially well-being is called health. Health is simply does not simply means disease-free condition or physical fitness. Health is affected by various types of diseases. Anything which will affect the normal well-being of human body we call it as diseases. Basically, diseases are of three types. We can differentiate, that is genetic disorder, or we call it as inborn diseases. The defect which a child inherits from its parents is called genetic disorder. Second one is called as infectious or communicable diseases, where a pathogenic microorganism is going to cause the disease. This is called as infectious diseases. And third one, by the virtue of lifestyle of an individual, it includes food and water we take, exercise and rest, what we will do. These are called as lifestyle disorders. So genetic disorder, we can give example like hemophilia, color blindness, sickle cell anemia. Infectious diseases, we can give example like you take corona or what we call as typhoid, common cold, etc. And lifestyle diseases, it includes obesity, right, diabetes. Now, good health can be maintained by balanced diet, personal hygiene, regular exercise, awareness about a disease and their effect, immunization against the infectious diseases, proper immunization, then disposal of wastage, control of vectors, maintenance of hygienic food and water. Disease can be broadly grouped into infectious and non-infectious. So infectious diseases which are easily transmitted from one person to another is called infectious diseases. Example as I have given, AIDS, common cold, malaria, tuberculosis, etc. Non-infectious diseases, diseases which we cannot transmit it from one person to another person are called non-infectious diseases. Example, cancer, hypertension, diabetes, etc. Common diseases in humans. The disease causing microorganism like bacteria, virus, fungus, protozoa, elementhes are called pathogens. The pathogen can enter a body by virus by various means and multiply and interfere with the normal vital activities, resulting in morphological and functional damage. That condition what we call it as infection or disease. There are various types of causative organisms or pathogens which we can group into like bacterial, viral, protozoal, fungal, helminthic diseases are categorized. So each from each category we'll discuss the respective type. Name of a disease, causal organism, symptoms and effects are the following we will discuss. First one is typhoid. Typhoid is caused by Salmonella typhi, and it is how it's going to be transferred by fecal oral route. That is, food contaminated with the fecal material is usually causes the typhoid. The symptoms of the typhoid includes sustained high fever, weakness, stomach pain, perforation. Even if it is goes untreated, in fact, it may cause death also. So typhoid is diagnosed by using Widal test. The popular test used for the diagnosis of the typhoid is Widal test. Second one is the second one again an bacterial disease, what we call it as pneumonia. Pneumonia is caused by Streptococcus pneumonia and Haemophilus influenza. This is transmission mode of transmission is this is again in the form of droplets. So this is transferred in the form of droplets. Now, what are the symptoms we're going to see in case of pneumonia? Pneumonia symptoms includes fever, chill, cough, and headache. If it goes prolonged untreated, alveoli get filled with the fluid, leading to severe problems in respiration, as well as the highest other kind of symptoms what we will see is lips and nail turns to blue. These are the major symptoms of the disease caused pneumonia. Now, the third one is common cold. It is a viral disease caused by the rhinovirus. The mode of transmission is again in the form of droplets and utensils contaminated like pen, books, paper, or the plates, spoons. When it is contaminated by the infected person, then it will be transferred into non-infected healthy individual. So the symptoms includes nasal congestion and discharge. We're going to see sore throat will be there, and cough and headache are the symptoms. If it goes prolonged, effects includes infect the nose and respiratory passage. This is what about common cold and its symptoms, mode of transmission. Now, malaria. Malaria is a protozoal disorder caused by the various Plasmodium species. Primarily in India, what we will see is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malaria, and Plasmodium falciparum. The symptoms of the mode of transmission, it's a vector borne disease. Mainly the female Anopheles mosquito will transmit from one individual to another individual. The symptoms of a malaria includes the chill and high fever reoccurring for 3 to 4 days. If it goes untreated, parasite multiplies within the liver cells and then attack the RBC, and even they can multiply in the spleen. Next, name of the disease is amoebiasis. Again, it is a um, protozoal disorder caused by it is also called as amoebic dysentery caused by the costio organism Entamoeba histolytic. The mode of infection is through the flies. This food contaminated with the fecal matter, that flies will carry these cysts of the amoeba onto the food and water. Then when we'll consume such contaminated food and water, that will leads to this amoebiasis, or we call it as amoebic dysentery. What are the symptoms we're going to see is constipation, abdominal pain, cramps, stool with the mucus, and blood clot will be present in the stool. Infect the large intestine primarily. Then the usually the fecal matter will be coated with the mucus and blood clot. Now, the next parasitic disease is nematodal disease, that is elemental disease, what we call it as ascariasis. It is caused by Ascariasis lumbricoides. This mode of transmission is again the cyst. When it is consumed through the food and water in the cyst form, it will enter into the large intestine and starts to multiply. What are the symptoms of the ascaris? We aware is internal bleeding, muscular pain, fever, anemia. So usually the intestinal blockage is the primary symptom of ascariasis. The healthy person get infected through water and vegetables which are contaminated with the cyst of the ascariasis or Ascaris lumbricoides. Then the next nematodal disease is elephantiasis, or we call it the elephant leg disorder or filariasis. The causative organism is Escherichia. Escherial bankruptcy or Escherial malai is the causative organism. The mode of infection is mode of transmission is, it is again a vector borne disease. This is transferred by the Culex mosquito. When it bites, it will transfer the spores of these organisms into the healthy individual, and they starts to multiply mainly in the lower lymphoid organs. Symptoms includes inflammation in the lower limbs and genital organs. Lymphatic vessels of a lower limbs get blocked, and this will appears like a elephant leg. That's why it is called as elephantiasis. The last disorder what we're going to discuss is a ringworm. It is a fungal disease. This fungal group of organism where it includes the Microsporum, Trichophyton, and Epidermophyton, or the three species of fungi capable of causing a ringworm. How it's going to be transferred? It is transferred through the utensils, are combs, socks, towels. Usually, it is common in schools and hostels. This what are the symptoms of this ringworm? Appearance of dry, scaly lesions on various parts of the body. Then infects the skin, nail, and scalp. So these all are the some of the infectious diseases, their transmission, positive organism, symptoms, what we have discussed. Now we'll move to the next. The major what we'll study in detail is a malaria. Life cycle of a plasmodium. Plasmodium, we know that the species it is responsible for causing malaria. Malaria nothing but mal air, that is foul air. So plasmodium enters the human body. We know that malaria is a vector-borne diseases in a body as a small sporozoite through the bite of infected female Anopheles mosquito and multiplies within the liver cells. Later attacks RBC, resulting the rupture with the release of toxic substance emosine, which is responsible for high fever and chill reoccurring every 3 to 4 days. Malarial parasite requires two hosts. That's why we call it as digenetic in nature. One is humans and another one is female Anopheles mosquito. Humans and the female Anopheles mosquito is called as a primary host, whereas the humans are called as secondary host. Female Anopheles is a vector of this disease to human beings. Now we'll see the flow chart show life cycle of Plasmodium. So first, Plasmodium will enter into the human body in the form of sporozoite. That's why sporozoite we call it as the infective stage of the malaria. Sporozoite through the salivary gland uh, through the saliva enters when the mosquito bites a healthy person. Now this sporozoite enter into bloodstream. Slowly by amoeboic movement, it will reach the liver. There it is going to multiply in hepatic cells. So this when the sporozoite will infect the hepatic cells, it is called as hypnozoite. Hepatic dormancy will occur. Then it will multiply further, and this will get mature in the liver as a schizoid, and it will ruptures the mature liver schizoid cells. Then it is going to release the parasites, what we call them as a merozytes. Merozytes are ready to enter into the RBC. They're going to infect the RBC or erythrocytes. In erythrocytes, when they are multiplying, we call them as a tropozoites. When they get multiply inside the RBC, erythroblast erythrocytic schizoid stage they will reach, and the rupturing of erythrocyte will releases the gametocytes, what we call them as. Along with that, the hemozyme, what we call it as toxin, responsible for the fever and a chill. This hemozyme will be entered into the blood, as well as rupturing of many number of RBC will cause us the chill and fever for every 3 to 4 days. Now these gametocytes are going to enter into another mosquito. When this mosquito will take the blood meal, when it get bites, these gametocytes will fuse together in the mosquito, but in the intestine. This microgamete where they're going to form microgamete, when they get fused together and forms the macrogamete. This macrogamete which has fused will develops into zygote. Zygote get modified itself into ookinete by attaching itself to the mosquito midgut. Now, what we are going to see is uh, the mosquito from in the mosquito midgut oocyte will develop itself. Bursting of the site will release the sporocytes in the salivary glands of the mosquito, and this mosquito will infect the next individual, and this will release a sporocyte into the next healthy individual. This is the life cycle of the plasmodium, and here the toxin released by the blasting of erythrocyte, what we call it as hemozyme, is a toxin which is responsible for the symptoms of malaria. Now, the next concept in this chapter is immunity. What is immunity? Ability of a host cell to fight the diseases causing microorganism due to immune system is called as immunity. There are two types of immunity. So first of all, what is immunity? Immunity is ability to resist the disease. Immunity is the physiological condition of the body to differentiate between the self and non-self and attack the non-self when it is entered into the body. Basically, immunity is classified into two types: innate immunity and acquired immunity. What is innate immunity? Innate immunity is a non-specific type. That means to say, this is not going to differentiate what kind of pathogen is entering, whether it has to kill that pathogen. It is not going to differentiate among the pathogens. Non-specifically, it will act against all the type of infectious agents which are entering into the body. So innate immunity is a non-specific type of defense present at the time of birth by and provide the different kinds of barriers to the entry of foreign agents into the body. It consists of four types of barriers. So keep in mind, students, innate immunity is non-specific and it is by the virtue of genetic nature of parents. It is transferred from parents to offsprings. Basically, innate immunity works in the form of barriers. There are four types of barriers existing in the innate immunity. These barriers are categorized into, first one is called as a first line, that is physical barrier. The physical barrier basically includes skin, mucus coating, epithelium lining of the respiratory tract, gastrointestinal and urinogenital tract. These are the basic barriers where they will block the entry of any kind of pathogenic organism. That's why it is called as physical barrier. Physically, they will block the entry. Second one is called as the physiological barriers. Acid in the stomach, saliva in the mouth, and lysozyme in the tears. What we will consider them as the physiological barriers. Acid in the stomach will block the entry of any type of microorganism through the food, fecal, or what we call as the food. When it is entering into the stomach, it will kill most of the microorganisms in the stomach itself. Saliva contain lysozyme, where it has antibacterial. It can kill the bacteria in a mouth itself. Tears also contains lysozyme, which will be blocking the entry of microorganisms into the eyes. Now, cellular barrier, it is the type of immunity where it is mainly due to polymorphonuclear leukocytes, what we call it as cellular barrier, or also a kind of non-specific immunity they're going to provide. What are those in the cellular barriers mainly providing non-specific immunity? Leukocytes, neutrophils, monocytes. In them, mainly what we call it as neutrophils and monocytes are phagocytic in nature. They'll cause us phagocytosis, in the sense any foreign organism or antigen entered into the body, they will engulf and destroy them. That is what we call it as phagocytosis. Even NK cells, what we call, these are also the part of cellular barrier. NK cells, nothing but natural killer cells. And last line of the non-specific immunity, or the what we call it as innate immunity, is cytokinin barriers. Mainly the cytokinin produced is interferon. Virus infected cell secretes the protein called interferon, which will be protecting the non-infected cells in the body from the virus. So what are the basic difference between, we will see the difference between the innate immunity and acquired immunity. So what are the basic difference? First, innate immunity present from birth itself. That's why by the virtue of genetic material, what we call it as. Acquired immunity is developed during the lifetime when a person get exposed to the infections. Second, the immunity remains throughout the life. Innate immunity will be present throughout the life. Whereas acquired immunity can be short-lived or lifelong. Now, third one is contact or exposure with the pathogen or its antigen is not essential. So, innate immunity does not require the contact with the pathogen, because the innate immunity is non-specific. It will be blocking altogetherly entry of anything non-self into the body. Whereas acquired immunity requires contact with the pathogen or its antigen, so that the immunity get educated regarding that specific kind of immunity, a specific kind of pathogen, so that it will keep a memory cells in future. If it the same type of pathogen enters into the body, it will protect. Innate immunity is inheritable, whereas acquired immunity cannot be passed to the next generation. And innate immunity, it protects the individual from contraction of diseases of other organisms, whereas acquired immunity, it protects the individuals from the pathogen present on the other members of the same species. Now we'll go in detail with respect to the innate acquired immunity. So what is acquired immunity? Pathogen specific. That's the main difference what we can say between innate and acquired. Innate is non-specific, acquired is specific. So acquired immunity is a pathogen specific defense characterized by memory. Whenever our body encounters a pathogen first time, produces response called primary response, or we call it the primary immune response. It will be usually of a low intensity. Subsequent encounters by the same pathogen produces highly intensified response called secondary immune response. So this acquired immunity we call it as anamnestic response, nothing but due to memory of first encounter. Now, the acquired immunity is mainly going to work based on the two types of cells, what we call the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. Primary and secondary response are carried out with the help of B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes produces army of proteins, what we call them as antibodies. having two light and two heavy chains. Now, it involves types of lymphocytes, two types of lymphocytes. What are those? B lymphocytes, which are responsible for the antibody mediated or humoral immune response. Second one is T lymphocytes, which is responsible for the cell mediated immunity. Now we start with the B lymphocytes. So these B lymphocytes, mainly the B plasma cells, will produce us antibodies. These antibodies act as the biggest defense structures where they will be binding to the antigen and they will be destroying the antigen. What is antigen, students? Anything which is capable of causing disease is called as antigen. Structure of an antibody we will discuss in the next. The antibodies are protein molecules called immunoglobulins and are of various types like IgA, it is also called a secretory antibody, IgM, what we call it as a multivalent antibody, IgE, this is responsible for the allergic response, and IgG, the most predominant and can pass through the placenta, what we call it as IgG antibody. Now, each antibody molecule consists of four polypeptide chains. Two are longly coiled heavy chains and other two are shortly coiled light chains. Both are arranged in the shape Y, hence the antibody represented as H2L and L2. The light and heavy chains are held together with the help of the disulfide bond. Mainly the light and heavy chains are held together by a single disulfide bond. In turn, both the light and heavy chains on the antibodies are stabilized by the presence of various in each chain. Each heavy chain has around this four mm, disulfide bonds, whereas each light chain has a two disulfide bonds. And usually the antibody is divided into two regions. One is the lower part, what we call it as a constant region, it remains same to the all the type of antibodies, whereas the upper part of both the heavy and light chain consist of variable region on the light chain as well as on uh, the heavy chain. This variable region, what it is responsible for the binding of antigens to neutralize the antigen. This antigen binding reason what we call it as. On the basis of production of antibodies, immunity can be further categorized into two types of immunity basically. What are those? Active immunity and passive immunity. So now what is active immunity? Body produces its own antibodies against the antigen. Basically, active immunity is a slow but long lasting effect it will be having. This active immunity is again classified into active natural and active artificial. What is active natural? When a person get exposed to the disease, then he will develop an acquired immunity where he'll be capable of fighting against it. Naturally, he gain that immunity. That's why we call it as active natural. What is active artificial immunity? Active artificial immunity is nothing but immunization or a vaccination. What? The prepared immunogen or an antigen which is destroyed partially, added into the body artificially, the immunity is developed and it is also long lasting. That's why we call it as active immunity. So active immunity is of two type: active natural and active artificial. Same way we can have here the passive immunity. What is passive immunity? These are ready-made antibodies transferred from one individual to another. So that is what we call it as passive immunity. Again, we can classify passive immunity into passive natural and passive artificial. Passive natural includes the feeding of a mother where colostrum contains the antibody IgA. It will be protecting the newborn baby until it will develop its own immunity. What is passive artificial? The like anti-venom where already prepared antibodies are provided mainly during the snake bite. What we will find the anti-venom providing what we call it as a passive. Usually, what is passive immunity? It is for a short time only until those antibodies existing in the body. So passive immunity is a short time, but it is fast in action. Passive natural example, colostrum, passive artificial example, antivenom. Different types of antibody produced in a blood, including IgA, IgM, IgE, etc. They are called as humoral immune response due to presence in blood. Now, the second type of a cells which is responsible for the active immunity is a T lymphocytes. T lymphocytes, nothing but the thymus. This what we call it as they're going to develop, proliferate in the thymus. This T lymphocyte is responsible for the cell mediated immunity. Basically, T lymphocytes will produce us four types of cells. What are those? This TC cell, TH cell, T suppressor cell, and T memory cell. What is TC cell? TC cell is causing cytotoxic activity. TH cell is a helper cell. TM cell is a memory cell. T suppressor is after immune function is done, the all these T cells are suppressed by this T suppressor cell. Now, human system can distinguish. Now immune system can be distinguished between self and foreign molecules or foreign bodies. Sometimes due to genetic or unknown reasons, the body attack the self cells. This results in damage to the body and called autoimmune disease. Example for the autoimmune disease is rheumatoid arthritis due to this effect. So what we're going to see that autoimmune disorders nothing but usually the human immunity is meant for protecting self from the non-self, but it fails and it will starts to damage the own body cells. Such condition we call it as the autoimmune disease. Now second type of disorder no, linked with the immunity is allergies. What is allergy? Exaggerated response of immune system to certain antigens present in the environment called allergy. The substance to which human response is produced called allergens. The antibodies produced due to these are usually IgE types. Allergy is due to secretion of chemicals like histamine and serotonin from the mast cell. So allergic condition can be treated by introducing antihistamine or anti-allergic substance. All of a human system of a human body eh, indu- includes the lymphoid organs and the tissues. Basically, the whole of human system is divided into primary and secondary lymphoid organs. So, lymphoid organs are the organs where origin and maturation and proliferation of lymphocytes occurs. Primary lymphoid organs includes bone marrow and thymus. After maturation, lymphocytes migrate to secondary lymphoid organ like spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, pairs, patches, small intestine, and appendix. They provide sites for interaction of lymphocytes with the antigens. There is a lymphoid tissue also called the lining of respiratory and digestive and urinogenital called mucosa associated lymphoid tissue or called as MALT. It constitutes the 50% of lymphoid tissue in human body. Now we'll move to the next and most important disease called AIDS. AIDS is a acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. It is caused by the virus HIV, what we call as human immunodeficiency virus. So AIDS was first reported in 1981. It is caused by HIV called human immunodeficiency virus. It belongs to Retroviridae family. The transmission of HIV occurs following mainly the following reasons are responsible for the transmission of HIV: sexual contact with the infected person, second, transfusion of contaminated blood and products, third one is sharing of infected needles, as in the intravenous drugs, drug abusers, and fourth one is infected mother to child through the placenta. Replication of retrovirus in the macrophage we will discuss here. AIDS or HIV does not spread by physical contact, it spreads only through body fluids. There is a always time lag between infection and appearance of symptoms that may vary from 5 to 10 years. Diagnostic test for AIDS, that is ELISA, is used, that is ELISA nothing but we know that enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. The treatment of the disease with the antiviral drug is partially effective and just prolonged the life but not prevent the death. Now, the life cycle of HIV, we know that retrovirus is a RNA virus. This HIV RNA virus as a RNA as a core and a viral protein coat. Virus infect the normal cells, mainly where we're going to see multiply in a macrophages. Then it will inject its core into the macrophages. Viral RNA is introduced into the cell. Now, the virus core contains another one enzyme called as the reverse transcriptase, where it will help in the conversion of RNA into DNA in the cytoplasm of macrophages. Viral DNA produced by reverse transcriptase. Now, viral DNA incorporates into the host genome. When it get incorporates into the host genome, it will starts to produce viral RNA and other viral particles. So new viral RNA is produced by the infected cell. These new viruses are produced, will be released out by bursting of these macrophages. Now these virals are ready to infect the next cell. Majorly, the HIV virus multiplies in the macrophages and mainly the T lymphocytes. So these T lymphocytes, when they get reduced, number of T lymphocyte is reduced due to the multiplication of virus. As the infection of the T lymphocytes with the virus increases, the immune deficiency starts. The person immunity will compromised, and he will be prone to the many of the infections that the what we call as many of the parasites will infect like tuberculosis, toxoplasm, or the some common infections what we are going to see in infected person. So this is what about HIV life cycle. Now we'll move to the next, that is cancer. This is again a major disease. Cancer is one of the most dreaded disease of human beings and is a major cause of death all over the world. Normal cell shows property called contact inhibition, by virtue of which contact with other cells inhibit the uncontrolled growth. But cancer cell has lost its property. This is uncontrolled cell division, what we call it as cancer, that leads to metagenesis. It can spread to different parts of the body. Now we'll see the difference between normal cell and cancer cell. Normal cells have uniform structure. Cancer cells have large variety of sizes and shapes. Now, reproduction nucleus have irregular structure and have relatively small cytoplasm. Reproduction and cell death. Cell starts to divide. Normal cells starts to divide when too much of its kind are present. These cells grow and divide in a controlled manner and follow a predictable life cycle. Normal cells undergo the process of apoptosis, self-destruction, if they detect abnormalities and damage in their organelle. Whereas cancer cells do not stop growing, resulting to appearance of tumor, a cluster of mutant cells. Next, communication in a normal cell communicate with each other for a proper functioning. Cancerous cells do not communicate with each other. Adhesion and invasion. These cells, that is normal cells, have external membrane that allow them to bond with other cells. Cancerous cells lose the molecules that keep the cells bonded together. These cells have the ability to invade or spread to other parts of the body by traveling through the bloodstream or the lymphatic system. This condition where capacity to spread to other parts of the body in the cancer, what we call it as metastasis. Specialization. Normal cells start out as immature cells and mature with certain specialized function. Cancerous cells do not mature and undergo apoptosis. Instead, these cells become immature over time. Cancer cells are primitive and they do not have specialized functions. Signal recognition. Normal cells recognize the signal. They know when and there are enough new cells and stop dividing. Cancer cells do not recognize the signal and hence these cells uh, erratically reproduce mutated cells. Cancer cells continue to dividing giving rise to the masses of cells called tumors. There are two kinds of tumors. We know that benign tumors and malignant tumor. Now we'll see the difference between benign and malignant tumor. Benign tumor, it remains confined to the affected organ. Malignant tumor, it also spread to other parts of the body. Benign tumor rate of growth is usually low, whereas malignant tumor rate of growth is usually rapid. Benign, there is no latent stage. Malignant, there is a latent stage. Benign, it causes limited damage to the body. Malignant, the cancer cells migrate to other sites of the body. Benign, there is no metastasis. Malignant, there is a metastasis. Benign, it is non cancerous. Malignant, it is cancerous. What are the causes of cancers? We will discuss here, students. Cancer is a neoplastic cell may be induced by physical, chemical, biological agents called carcinogens. Cancer causing viruses are called as oncogenic viruses. Have gene called viral oncogene, several gene called cellular oncogenes or proto-oncogenes have been identified. Normal cells which when activated undergo certain condition could lead to oncogenic transformation of the cell. Cancer detection and diagnosis. Cancer detection is based on biopsy and histopathological study of the tissue, blood and bone marrow test for increased cell counts, radiography, then CT or computed topography, MRI, magnetic resonance imaging are very useful for the cancer internal to detect the cancer in the internal organs. Treatment of cancer. Cancer is treated in a following four-way surgical method. Cancerous tissues are surgically removed. Radiotherapy, tumor cells are eradicated lethally by radiation. Chemotherapy, drugs are used to kill the cancerous cells but show side effects like hair loss, anemia, etc. Immunotherapy, patients are given with the alpha interferon which activate their immune system and help in destroying the tumor. Now, the next concept is drug and alcohol abuse. Commonly abused drugs include opioids, cannabinoids, alkaloids obtained from flowering plants and few from fungi. Opioids are the drugs which bind to specific opioid receptors present in our central nervous system and gastrointestinal tract. Heroin is commonly called smack, is a chemical. Chemically, it is diacetylomorphine, which is a white, odorless, bitter crystalline compound. It is extracted from latex of poppy plant, what we call as Papaver somniferum, generally taken by snorting and injection. Heroin is a depressant and slow down the body functions. Now, cannabinoids are group of chemicals which interact with the cannabinoid receptors present in the brain. Natural cannabinoids are obtained from inflorescence of the plant Cannabis sativa. They include marijuana, hashish, charas, and ganza. They are generally taken by inhalation and oral ingestion. These are known for their effects on cardiovascular system of the body. Now, cocoa alkaloids or what we call it as cocaine is obtained from cocoa plant called Erythroxylum coca. Native to South America, it interferes with the transport, that is, it is going to interfere with the transport of neurotransmitter dopamine. Cocaine, commonly called coke or crack, is usually snorted. It has a potent stimulating action on central nervous system, producing a sense of euphoria and increased energy. Adolescence and drug abuse. Adolescence is a period during the child becomes matured. It is between the age of 12 to 18 years. We know that that's called adolescence. What are the consequences we're going to see? Causes of drug abuse is mainly due to curiosity, adventure, excitement, experimentation, stress or pressure to excel in examination. Effects of drug and alcohol abuse, reckless behavior, malicious, mischievous, violent, drop in academic performance, depression, remaining isolated from other friends and family, aggressiveness, etc. are the effects of drug and alcohol abuse. Now, what is habit? Dependency is the tendency of a body to maintain, to manifest a characteristic and unpleasant, what we call the habit. Withdrawal syndrome, if a regular dose of drug, alcohol is abruptly discontinued, that includes, that's what we call as a withdrawal. What is we call as a withdrawal syndrome? Nothing but if a regular dose of a drug and alcohol is given to individual is stopped, then it will leads to withdrawal syndromes. These withdrawal syndromes includes anxiety, shakiness, nausea, and sweating. So dependency is a tendency of the body to manifest a characteristic and unpleasant, to manifest a characteristic. That's what we call the habit. So then when there is when they'll get unpleasant, when they will not get it, that's what we call it as a withdrawal syndrome. If a regular dose of a drug or alcohol is abruptly stopped to giving it, discontinued, this leads to a condition in them. These characters, these symptoms, what we call them as a symptoms. Withdrawal syndromes include anxiety, shakiness, nausea, and sweating. Prevention, avoiding under un, under pressure, education and counseling, seeking help from parents and peers, seeking professional and medical help is the solution for the drug and alcohol abuse. Thank you.